Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about version 12, all about reports. And we have Joe Pettit, who is our Senior Training Support Specialist and expert on V12. So he will be showing us today about reports, a couple housekeeping items. All lines have been muted, but we will be answering questions. So please type any of your questions in the questions box, and we're going to answer those throughout the webinar. And at the very end, we're going to answer questions over the phone that are relevant to the entire audience. Joe, can you go to the next slide for me? After the recording, I'm going to be sending you a recorded link, and then also for those that didn't attend, so if there's anybody in your organization that couldn't attend that wants to see that, they can get that link emailed to them. Or if you want to, you can go to the on-demand section on our website. At the very end, we're going to have a 3-question exit survey, and we really like your feedback because from there we can determine what topics are the most popular and then shape what content we're going to be delivering for each webinar. And then the last thing is that sign up for next month's webinar, which will be interiors condition schedule. And then we also added one for fireproofing UL designs on October 3rd. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Joe. We'll get started.
Thank you, Tammy. Today, we're going to discuss the basics of viewing and printing reports, as well as creating your own. So let's get right into that. Here we are. I'm going to click on the reports button, and here's our reports. Now, those of you who are familiar with version 10, we can now view all of the reports, and you do that with this little preview button right here that says run on it. We can even preview the drawing reports, unlike what we could do before. So I click that, I wait a few seconds, and there's my drawing report appearing. If I want to go to the second page, I just move down there, and now I'm looking at my second page. So that's one nice thing, being able to preview all the reports. Another thing is you may want to print these reports in a particular order. Let's say I wanted to print the consolidated, the recap, then the stocking report, and then the drawing report. You'll notice that as I check these boxes, numbers appear to the right in the order that I checked them. This is the order that the reports will print at when I send them to the printer. Now, another nice feature that version 12 has that we didn't have before is the ability to put all of these in one PDF file instead of 4 separate files. To do that, I click the Generate PDF button, and then I click Print Selected. Now, when this window pops up, take note to where it's going, and if it's not going where you want it to, redirect that. Now, I went ahead and created a folder on my desktop called Edge Report Output, but you could put this in an individual folder for the job file or wherever you want to. And I'll come down here and just call it Test Report. And when I click Open, it thinks for a minute. Now, watch what happens. Because I have a drawing report in there, it pops this window where it's asking me a question. You want to go ahead and finish answering that however you want and then hit OK. Otherwise, this screen will just stare at you for a very long time. All right, so there we go. When it finally goes away, then I know that the report has been set, but it does not pop up automatically on the screen. To do that, I want to go into my Windows File Explorer. If you notice on your keyboard between the Control key and the alternate key, down near the bottom of your keyboard, there's a little icon that looks like the Windows icon. If you touch that, you can get a menu at the bottom. And that's very handy because in some places in version 12, the menu sort of disappears. And I come in here, I double click on my test report, and there it is. I can see my consolidated report, my recap report, my stocking report, and then my drawing report, all in one PDF. Now that's nice for when you want to print them all together, but how about if you want to export one of these? I can take any report and click the Run button and then export it. I can export to Excel, PDF, or Word, and in some reports, like the user-defined ones, I can also export in a CSV format. For this discussion, I'll export my recap to an Excel format. This goes to the same folder that I previously created. I call it Recap, and I hit Save, and the window goes away. So I'm ready to go take a look at that. To take a look at it, I hit my little Windows key again. It pops open. I click my yellow folder, and I go into that particular folder where I placed that report, and there's my recap report in an Excel format. Now, it's not adding up all these cells and all that kind of stuff. So if you start playing around with it, you're going to have to go ahead and format that thing like you would a normal spreadsheet. But at least it gets it in there in that general order for you. Now, there's also a nice new feature that we have that has to do with report favorites. Let's say I like to print the consolidated report and the stocking report and the drawing report on every time that I want to print reports. Well, what I can do is come over here, and in the order I click this, it will put them in a favorites list for me. So I click the little star next to consolidated. I come down here and click stocking, and then I click drawing, and in the same order that I selected them, they appear over here. If they're not in the order you want, just hit the star, get them all out of there, and go ahead and change it back to the way you want. Now you've got a nice, easy list to work with. This is not user-specific, it is computer-specific. So if someone else signs into the same computer and goes into the Edge, they will see the same favorites list that you created. I'll leave that way for now, and we'll come back to that. By the way, the recap screen at the moment does not save to the favorites list. That, and I believe it's the tapered and standing seam ones do not. But the rest of them, to my knowledge, all work real nicely in that favorites list. All right, now of course, I can print a stocking report just by coming over here and previewing it. And what I've got now is a stocking report on the entire job. Because I haven't marked anything, I get everything. Everything at least that's been turned on in that job. If I just wanted a stocking report on a couple of these conditions, I could mark the particular conditions I wanted, or any other report for that matter, and click my reports button and preview it. And now I'm just looking at the items that are in those two conditions that I marked. Now that comes in handy, but sometimes you want the entire job, but you only want certain items, maybe to fax to your supplier or something like that. So in that case, what you do is first go out to the pricing screen. The pricing screen is the only place you can do this. And you mark whatever line items you would like to send to that particular supplier. And then you click on your reports, and the only report this will work with is the pricing fax report. The pricing fax report. I come over here and I click preview next to that. And now I only get the items that I selected. So that comes in very handy when I just want to send certain items to my supplier. Well, that wraps it up as far as talking about the generalities on selecting reports and printing reports. Let's take a look now on how to create some reports on our own. I go out to the reports menu. I'll go ahead and put them all back over in the main list. Now, the key to creating a report is find one that's closest to what you already want and change that. It will save you a lot of setup and changing around time along the way. Plus, these reports group things differently. So you have to kind of pick the type or the format of the report. You can see they're already grouped here by the format of the general format of the report. So what I'm going to use our consolidated report and create a couple other reports from that. So first, you come over here and you click the little copy and insert button. You give it a new name. All I want to do in this one is add waste percent to this. And then you hit save. Always hit save so that it shows up on your list before you do anything else, or you'll end up getting an error when you move further on to it and then you try to save it. All right, so now I click right on the name of that particular report, and then I click Design Report. I'm now where I can see a preview of this report, but I want to make changes to it. So I click the Design button, and while I'm in here, this is a general report designer screen. You'll notice that up at the top here, it shows me the name of my report. Here I see a ruler to get an idea of how wide my report is. We'll talk about this one later. This is the field properties screen, and then over here is some more general information regarding my report, including what columns can be printed. Now, these columns will change according to the type of report you're selecting on what can and cannot be printed. For now, I'm coming down to waste, and I check waste, and I get a waste column. Now, there is a problem here. I've got an 8.5 inch wide piece of paper, and I just added a column that makes it bigger than that. Up here, it gives me a warning. You always want it to be so that you can fit it on your page. So I come over here and I change this to an 11 inch wide piece of paper, and now I've actually got a little bit of room to grow here. I can go, you want to keep the report column size about a 1/2 inch or so less than your paper width. Otherwise, it will end up jumping to another page when you print it out on your printer. So I'll go ahead and widen the description a little bit here. Leave it right about there. And let's see what this looks like. To do that, I click the Apply Changes button. And now I see the report that I just created. Basically, a consolidated report with the waste percent in. But you see all these lines over here? Maybe I don't want those lines. So I come over here. I click Design. I click on the field I want to change. So in this case, it's the field where the information is actually showing up. And then over here on the right-hand side, on my field properties margin, I see that I've got an underline underneath it. I uncheck that, and the next time I hit Apply Changes, my report looks different. When I'm finally done with this and I'm happy with it, I click Save, and then you always want to hit Save again right here. This is the one that's truly saving the report so that it's there for the future. So there it is. I now have a consolidated by waste report. Now let's say I wanted a labor report similar to the consolidated, but I don't want any money on the thing. So what I'll do is I'll come over here to my consolidated report, and I'll hit the copy and insert again, and I'll call it labor hours. All right, now I only want labor on this, so I can come over here and uncheck all the cost types that I do not want in the report and only leave the one that I want checked. Now, before I move on, I hit the Save button. I hit the Save button, and that saves it and puts it in my list. Now I can go in and edit it by clicking on the name of the report, clicking Design Report, and here's what it looks like. Now I'm going to eliminate some of these columns. So to do that, I click on the Design button, and I'm back into that Report Designer screen that I was in before with the title of it up at the top. The easiest way to remove a column is to click on the particular column you want to get rid of, and it will appear over here in the checklist on the left side. Then just uncheck it. I click over here, I uncheck it. Click again, it moves to that, I uncheck it. Now you don't have to do it that way. So in this case, I'll uncheck both of these at once. So I've now narrowed this down to a very small report. All right, now I want to add another column. So I come down here, or up in this case, to hours, and I check it, and I get my hours. If I do nothing else but hit apply changes, I now see the report that I created. Notice that at the moment my descriptions are wrapping, and I've got these lines over here that I really don't want. So let's tweak this report a little bit. I'll go back into design. I'll take the description column and drag it over just under 8 inches so that it doesn't end up printing on 2 pieces of paper, since I've got an 8.5 inch wide piece of paper that I'm working with here. Now I want to get rid of those underlines, so I click here and I uncheck bottom and I hit OK. And there it is. It's looking better, but at the moment, nothing's subtotaling. And I really don't like the colors that I have over here. The other thing I want to do is I want to change this so it doesn't repeat the same information twice. So how do I do that? I come back into design. I click on the particular column I want to change, and then the field properties shows up over here. It tells me what it is. I come over here and I change it to a text, and I just say subtotal. And then when I hit OK, it looks like this. Getting better, still needs a little work. I click on my design button again, and let's make a few more changes. Let's change some colors in here. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention that I should mention that's very important is grouping. How is this report grouping? This report is grouping first by subdivision, so that if I had 2 different trades on here, they would show up separately, and then by user code within each one of those. This big one is called the parent, and these littler ones are called the child. Where do I see that? I come over to design and it says parent group, subdivision, child group, user code. That's how the Edge is going to group this particular report. If I click up here, when I click up here on parent group subdivision, over here the color and all the information for that field appears. And I would like to change that to a brighter blue. And then hit OK or apply changes for that. Now let's come back in and make a few different changes. I want this column here, this child group here, to be brown. So I come in here, I make it brown. Now I would like the corresponding subtotal to be brown and not just the header. So I come down here to the field that says subtotal. I look over here to make sure I'm getting the right one, child group, and then I change the color to brown. All right. Now let's add a subtotal value to this. To do that, I click in the column where that subtotal would appear. I come up here and I tell it it's an aggregate. It's going to take it and combine everything together. And how do I want it to combine together? By the sum. I want it to be the same color as what I had before. And I want it to be bold. Now I'm going to leave a couple things wrong so you can see how that looks. I hit apply changes, and I get my subtotals real nice, except a few more decimals than I would like to see, and you'll notice it's left justified. To fix that, I go back into the designer. I have to make sure I click on the right column, otherwise I'll end up changing something I don't want to. I've got the color and everything over here good. Now I want to right justify that column. I want it to be a number. It's not a currency, but I'll give it 2 decimal places. And I also want, instead of underlining it, I want the line to be on top, and I want it to be a little thicker. So I make that thickness 2 instead of 1. Now when I hit apply changes, I get something that looks more meaningful with subtotals in there. Now that's nice, but a couple other changes I want to make. Notice, first of all, I don't have a subtotal at the bottom here. To do that, I come back in here. I go to my parent field, and I do the same thing. I say I want an aggregate. I want it to be a sum. I want it to be nice and blue. We'll make all the changes at once this time. Bold, right justified, number, 2 decimal places, and make the line thicker and put it at the top. There we go. Now, besides the subtotals for each user code, I've got the total hours appearing at the bottom of my screen. Now, that's nice, but it's still a little hard to read with everything so close together here. So let's clean that up a little. I hit Design, and I go to a new place. Instead of over here where I can change various fields, I come over to the other side here, and I click on the Advanced button. Now, notice that this is the child group is the inner one, the user codes. So when I click on Advanced, I come to Inner Group End, and I change the number. You can play with these things and put a number in there and just see what it does, and you'll get an idea of how it's working. Now, by doing that, these things are broken out. They're separated a little bit. It makes sense. It's an easy report to read. So I hit Save. I hit Save again, and I'm good to go. So that takes care of today. It's back to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Joe. We do have one question, and I'm not sure if you know how to do this. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, but if you don't, then we can send instructions to everybody. But Clint Robertson asked, how do you add our company logo to the report?
All right, that's a great question. That's a feature we have in version 12 that we did not have in version 10. You don't do that in the reports themselves. You do that in your preferences. So I come up here and I click on Options, and then I click on Preferences. And where my company name, address, and all that stuff appears, there's something that says Logo and it says Load. You click that, you go find your company logo, and you pop it in there so that it appears like this, and then you just hit Save. And after you do that on all of your reports, when you print your reports, the logo appears at the upper left-hand corner of the screen.
Very nice. Thank you. That was smooth, Joe. Thanks. That's the last of our questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining this month, and we will see you all next month. And just a reminder, I'm going to send out this link, and then you can also go to our website to sign up for additional webinars or listen to ones that you've missed. Thank you, everybody.
Do I shut it off?